Hello, everyone. My name again is Andrew Wilkinson, and I am the Chef Director of Research and Development here at North Coast Seafoods. As the chef here, my background, I have been totally blessed with sort of a robust chef career and the chance to work around the world and the United States to learn from some of the finest chefs in history. I'm a lucky, lucky guy. And no doubt, right now, I have one of the absolute best jobs in the world. I come to work each day, be able to cook and eat pristine seafood. My primary responsibilities as chef director here are two. One, just spread the good word that seafood needs to be a regular part of your weekly diet. Twice a week, please. Two, I work with our retail partners and our restaurant chefs to share culinary knowledge on how to cook seafood and how to be profitable in this arena. It's a total open source world out there, and I really enjoy getting to share the sort of the chef love and all the secrets behind the scenes now. No secrets anymore. And three, I get to develop unique and high quality seafood products that fill a need in the restaurants and retail stores. Everyone's looking for something a little bit more different and trendy these days. And when it comes to seafood, honestly, sometimes we forget just how lucky we are to live in such a seafood-rich region. We have the finest seafood in the world right here in our front yard. For years, the seafood industry here in New England has relied on its local fishermen for its fresh local catch. Fishermen travel out into the Atlantic or off the coast of New England and Canada to harvest these local treasures of the sea. And it's sort of funny how many of us have no idea what's out there besides those usual suspects, cod and haddock, haddock and cod and haddock. That's the world we live in. So I wanted to explain in a little bit of a different way with a little ditty that I wrote. So maybe you can sing along with me or at least follow the lyrics. Gwen, I'm going to ask you to switch over to our screen, and it's called Try the Redfish. Now you've heard you should eat the local fish. You want a special trendy dish, but you don't know what's out there, do you? Well, there's hake and monk and crispy sole. There's dirty squid and skate meuniere, and the pollock is the king. Hallelujah. Try the pollock, try some monk tails, try the flounder, try some redfish Provençal. Well, there's not just fish, there's shellfish too. We have live clams just dug for you. The scallops and the oysters are all local. The tops, the necks, the cherry stones, our shucked cohogs will make you Jones. The mussels are so big, they're Schwarzenegger. Try the pollock, try some cohogs, try the steamers, try our redfish Provençal. Okay, Gwen, back to the real screen. I know. Don't quit my day job, but chefs gotta have fun though, right? Okay, before we get cooking, and now that I'm totally relaxed that I got to sing, let's take a shallow dive into our local fish scene. For generations, New England and the whole country has relied on the local cod to fill their plates. Everyone loves that sweet, mild-tasting, firm fillet of New England codfish. But there's one problem. We have mismanaged our resource, and now the cod population has dwindled, and it's time to give it a break and allow it to recover. So what do? We pivot. We open our minds to all the other possibilities that the Gulf of Maine has to offer. Today, we cook the local Acadian redfish. Let's take a look at some facts and figures. The Acadian redfish, AKA ocean perch, many chefs call it the perfect taco fish. I'll explain that later. But the Acadian redfish is a completely sustainable local species landed in the Gulf of Maine. Gulf of Maine is a huge area of water from Canada, Maritimes, all the way down through New York. It's easily identified by its flame brilliant red skin. It's now considered a completely abundant fishery, and it's certainly one of the most affordable when you go out to buy it. It's a very lean fish fillet. It's flaky and moist and very sweet. Its pinkish flesh will cook up beautiful, firm and white, and can be prepared any way that you would cook cod or haddock. Next screen, please. So as you can see from this, that is the fish and the fillets. You'll see it in stores. They're in a skin-on version because it has a beautiful red skin, or skinless. And there's that taco. Because this is a smaller fish, tends to be, the fillets tend to be around 2 to 3 ounces each. It's not that big monster fillet. You can come back to me if you'd like. It's not that big monster fillet, but what it is that beautiful small fillet that's perfect, and it fits in the chef's tacos in the restaurant perfectly. So there is the redfish. And let me show you the fillets. So here are these fillets. So they're only about 5 or 6 inches long, and you can see they're just about 2 or 3 ounces. So we used to love to see large fillets of everything, but a small fillet of this is a beautiful. So we're gonna, we're gonna cook 3 of these per person, which is gonna be about a 6-ounce portion. And what this does is it really supports the local fishermen for an abundant species, so we can stay away from some of the cod and the haddock. Makes sense to everyone? Beautiful. So we're going to get cooking. I told you we're cooking redfish Provençal. Provençal is just a fancy sounding descriptor term that says it's cooked in the style of Provence, the southern coastline of France. Provence is the centerpiece of the Mediterranean diet, the Mediterranean cuisine, and that's where the Mediterranean diet would hail from. It's a diet full of vegetables, olives, beans, fish, red wine, white wine. You've all seen it, you've heard of it, and how healthy it can be. But what are the benefits of that particular lifestyle? The lifestyle of the diet, because it will contain it, prevents pretty much everything in your life, from heart disease, it improves blood flow, prevents stroke, Alzheimer's, keeps your brain healthy, type 2 diabetes, and it increases longevity in diets, especially people who are living around the Mediterranean. This is how they eat, so this is how they survive a lot longer than many people here in the States. And when we talk about French cuisine gets credited for basically being the mother and father of all cuisines, basically because of one guy. His name was Auguste Escoffier, probably the most famous French chef in history. And he's credited with saying these important words that he gave to cooks from everywhere around the world. It's in French, it says, surtout fais simple, which translates to, above all, keep it simple. So when we talk about Mediterranean cuisine, we allow the quality of the ingredients to shine through in the natural way. So let's go. What we're going to do today is we're simply going to pan fry the fish and make a sauce in one pan. So we're keeping it simple. So let's start. There's something called, in French cooking, okay? It's a term that we use in kitchens everywhere around the world. And even I had the pleasure to work in Germany, and I worked in Japan, and everyone still speaks the French sort of kitchen language in all of these countries. And something is called mise en place. Many of you have probably heard it. It's a French term that says, keep everything in its place. So before we cook this, because that fish, the redfish fillet, being just 2 or 3 ounces, is only going to take about 3 or 4 minutes to cook. So it's going to be important to get all of our ingredients together, our mise en place, get it together, cook the fish in the pan, take the fish out, keep it warm, add our vegetable components, make our sauce in the same dish, finish it. So before we get like that, before we put the fish into the pan, It's going to be time to sort of light the candles, pour the wine, and get ready to serve dinner. Okay, so let's go with some prep of the mise en place. Right. I'm not sure if you've seen the menu, the recipe, but I am using, instead of onion, I'm using a shallot. I love shallot. It's kind of a cross between garlic and onion. It definitely adds a depth of flavor. So it's shaped just like an onion. It has all of the layers of an onion, and we're going to chop it exactly the way we would chop an onion. If sometimes a big knife might be a little intimidating for you, it's no big deal. Go to the small knife. So we're going to make the cross cuts. And that is simple. Now, if you have the recipe in front of you, you're going to see, I didn't put garlic in this recipe. There is a lot of garlic in Mediterranean cooking. I left it out because sometimes I feel like I put garlic in everything. But I'm going to tell you a little secret, because cooking can be somewhat of therapy. I drive the Mass Pike and 128 and sometimes 93 every day. And I get witness with a lot of Rhode Island drivers. And sometimes they get you so ticked off. So I'm against road rage, but sometimes I can come into my kitchen, and sometimes what I do is I take it out on my cutting board or my garlic. So today, you know what? I had a rough commute in, so we're chopping garlic today. There's my clove. There's the big knife, as they say in the movies, and we smash it, okay? There we have chopped garlic. Let's do it again, all right? Knife right on top, boom, done. And then we chop. So you feel a little anxiety, you got a little action going on, add some extra garlic to your dish, okay? That's going in there today. That's how easy it is to chop garlic. And relax a little bit as we go.
Chef, we have a question about the small knife that you were just using.
Yeah.
Do you know what brand it is? Someone really liked it.
Yes, I do know what brand it is. It's called Cheap Knife. I am a big fan of easy disposable knives. I believe this is a little Wusthof. Have you ever been to the store China Fair in Newton on Needham Street? They have a little impulse buy. So when you're checking out, when you're at the cashier, they have these knives. I believe they're Wusthof, but whatever. I am into sort of easy knives. This is a great knife. It's fun, but I also use very basic knives, keep them sharp, and that's it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. That's great.
Maybe it's not exactly what you wanted to hear, but it's definitely true. So let's go down. We're going to have some zucchini and yellow squash. Very much a Provençal item. When I dice zucchini and yellow squash, I hate to waste foods, but chefs don't like the middle of these vegetables. This part here tends to where all the water is kept, and it can be a little bit spongy. So keep this off to the side. You can snack on it if you want. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly good, but I want the firmer outside parts of the zucchini and yellow squash. All right. You don't have to get crazy with measurements here. This would be what you would call a small dice. You'll also probably notice a lot of chefs in restaurants use gloves. I don't use gloves at home, but what I do is I make sure that my hands are washed before I get into my mise en place cooking mode. If you have to use your phone and you start touching with your phone and you're cutting, please wash or sanitize your hands again. My wife is probably laughing hard at me right now because she always has to remind me, but practice makes perfect. So that's it. My zucchini is done. My shallots are done. Same thing on the yellow squash. It's actually even a little bit more seedy. This can be quite seedy. You can see it. You can see this, how seedy it is right there. Again, give it to your kids. Get some blue cheese dressing and turn it into a crudité real fast. They won't know the difference, but they'll get all the benefits from it. Again, boom, gone. It's important when you're doing a one-pan dish like this that all of your vegetables are somewhat, your meatier vegetables are all cut the same size, so they'll cook the same. That's quite important. I'm cooking this for, the recipe calls for 2. That's that. But this can obviously be scaled up for 4, whatever. Plum tomatoes. So tomatoes are obviously a sun region diet. So there's always tomatoes. For this, if I'm going to cook it, I use a plum tomato. You can use any tomato you want. So I'm going to do something a little bit weird. So we make sure we wash all of our vegetables before. And we have this tomato. So I'm going to dice it. But plum tomatoes have a good amount of moisture and water in it. So we want to remove some of that. So what do? We're going to sort of peel along the outside because I am going to cook this tomato in the pan. And then we're left with this. You're all familiar with the tomato, with all the water that's inside and the seeds. There's nothing wrong with this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, here. I'm just going to make a fist and I'm going to squeeze all that excess water right out of my tomato. I don't want to throw away that inside because it's beautiful. And that is going to turn where I'm going to dice this tomato. And when this goes into the pan, it will melt right into the sauce. And it's going to make a beautiful part of the pan sauce. So we don't want to throw that away. Let's tidy up a little bit. Okay, now here's the inside, and just cut it exactly the same way. Okay. Couple got away there. What's next? That's what's next. We're going to be adding a few other things. Now, you can add what you want here. We're getting into sort of an ingredient that is up to you, whatever you're feeling. Today, I was going to use white beans, cooked white beans, because I love white beans, but I was in the store, and since we were in the Mediterranean diet with this whole thing today, I found this item. This is couscous, and a pretty cool item. I've tasted it. This has a turmeric flavor to it. So what is couscous? It's really just a pasta in a round format, big in Middle Eastern Israeli cuisine. And the turmeric, very sort of trendy these days to take away any, it's an anti-inflammatory. So couscous with turmeric, which I already cooked. I just boiled it like a regular pasta. And so we are going to add that to the sauce as well. Other things that I did pick up that I was not sure. So this is where you need to, don't worry so much about recipes so much. If you're gluten-free, you want to stay away from pasta, don't do that. Don't do that. You know, go with your white beans. I do love these Goya small white beans. They're beautiful. So they're quite small and they go into a sauce really, really nice. If you want pasta instead, something quite small to go into the sauce, this is an orzo, a small orzo, or even smaller, an acini di pepe pasta. It's a beautiful little tube-shaped pasta that goes great in sauces as well. So don't be afraid to mix and match, mix it up, okay? What's next? Next, we're going to keep our mise en place going. We have fresh basil. What do you do with the fresh basil? We don't really chop fresh basil. What we'll do is we'll take it off of the stem. Don't worry if there's a little stem on there, nothing wrong. It's not going to kill anyone. And we take the leaves off and we just stack them in a pile. And we're going to do something with a big, long French name to it. It's called chiffonade. But basically what that means is we're just going to roll this up. Okay. Kind of like you did in high school. And then we're just going to cross cut that into ribbons. And there we have a chiffonade. Why don't I chop this fine? Because what happens when you start bruising it, okay, it'll start to turn dark and oxidize on you quite fast. So we just chiffonade rather than chop it like we would something like a parsley. So there is our basil, ready to go. What's next? Now we have some olives. In the land of the Mediterranean, olives rule. In my recipe, I like green olives over black olives. They're a little milder, add a little bit more brine rather than oomph. This is a Castelvetrano. I prefer, like on my recipe, it said the Picholine, the southern French olive, but don't sweat the small stuff, okay? We're talking olives here. Once it gets into the sauce with everything, it's not a big deal. I always like to get a pitted olive. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then we will just cut them in half and then into little wedges. And these green olives are going to add a beautiful flair at the end. And then the only thing that's left will be, we're going to end with a little bit of butter. Yes, they do use butter in the Mediterranean. It's not all olive oil. It is very popular, but there we have it. So now we have everything ready except our fish. All right, secret ingredient time. This is what chefs, there's always a little difference when you eat in a restaurant. Why is it that, which camera are you on? You're on this one? Chefs always have these little tricks. There's always little things that elevate their food that's a little bit different than when you cook at home. Regular flour is fine, but Wondra is sort of a secret weapon for chefs. It adds a beautiful light coating on the fish without being too heavy, and it'll just add that where you sort of get a sticks to the roof of your mouth, but in a good way. So a fine dusting of Wondra flour, okay? I use this when I'm going to flour any sort of protein. What other ingredients are we using today? We're gonna deglaze with wine. What wine do we use? Anything that you're drinking at home. You don't drink at home, don't add wine, okay? Not a big deal. You're still in dry January mode? Then you can use this, okay? This is my new find. You gotta go out there and find this. This is, it's a New England ingredient. This is made in New Bedford. This is the only product that's out there like this. Made by Five Way Foods. It's called bone broth, and it's made with all local fish bones. You can wash like you would a cutting board. You can wash your skewer with salt, soap and water, and just like you would wash a cutting board or any utensil, but wash it. Don't put that back into your drawer after it's been with the fish. All right. Add our shallot. Pan's a little hot, so I'm going to take it off of the heat a little bit. Where's my no, little garlic action there. We don't want to really brown anything here. Let's add our zucchini, yellow squash, and tomato. So what we're not doing is we're not going to overcrowd the pan with a lot of stuff. It's one layer of veggies. Now that I put things in there, I can turn the heat up. So we're going to cook these vegetables through. We want, just like pasta, we want to make sure the veggies stay a little bit on the al dente side. So al dente is not just for pasta, it's for vegetables as well. So keep a little bite with your veggies. A colorful dish as well. And again, if you can mix and match. So you can see, I can see my veggies are starting to cook through. You can see them soft, getting a little translucent on the edges. What we don't want to do is overcook this. So a little Pinot Gris going in. Pan is hot. My veggies are hot. We have a good boil going on there. I'm adding to last. I'm waiting. I don't want to add my olives now because they've been brined. They're usually a little bit on the salty side. I don't want to add the basil now because that's the last thing that's going to be sort of an effervescent, very flavorful. Using fresh herbs, you want to do it at the end. All right. Pasta's already cooked. So I don't want to add the pasta too early because it will turn it over into a mushy mess rather than the perfect al dente that I've already cooked it. All right. One of your new secret weapons. We're going in with the fish bone broth. That's going to round that right off. So it won't be just a wine flavor. You're going to have a beautiful fish flavor background. And how cool is it that John, who has Five Way Foods, he's making this fish broth in New Bedford. How cool is it that the bones that are actually in the broth are made from the redfish as well? It's also made from haddock, from halibut, pollock. Okay, that's looking quite good. We are going in with everything else now. Olives in. Turmeric couscous in. Wine. That's not wine, that's butter. So now we're going to turn the heat down a little bit. So you guys have maybe heard something called a beurre blanc. Not that this is a sauce, but it's a vegetable coating that has a sauce accompaniment to it. So now we're just melting the butter into the reduced wine and broth to create a little bit of a richness into this dish. Now we hit it with the basil because we are basically done, except for tasting it because chefs need to taste. So a little extra salt, a little extra pepper. Heat goes off. We are good to go. How's it look? Great. You can see what's happening now.
Chef, we have folks commenting that it looks awesome.
There you go. I hate to say it, but I'm standing right over it too, and it really does look pretty darn good. So I didn't time it, but I know once you have your mise and the flat side. Here we go again. Protect yourself. Find the hinge. Knife goes in, 10 pounds of pressure and throttle. Breaks the tip, no problem. We're going back in, 10 pounds of pressure and throttle. I can tell that I opened it. Use just the tip of the knife, paint can it down. Turn the knife over and scrape the top of the shell. So I'm angling my knife on the top of the shell. And once again, you see that mantle of the oyster. There's the muscle. You know the name of it now. I'm not going to say it again. Does I sound like a broken record? And now you have your oyster ready to go there. So,
5-minute warning, technically.
good. How do we open these oysters? How do we eat these oysters? All right. So here's what we do. Eating the oyster is an incredible experience because just 3 minutes ago, these 3 oysters that I opened were alive. They're not anymore, but they lived a wonderful life, and oysters are good for the environment. Why are they good for the environment? Because they filter microorganisms. That's what they eat. They eat microorganisms. They take nitrogen out of the water. They create beautiful silt on the bottom of the ocean. So oysters are good for the environment. So how do we eat this sucker? I told you that there's this massive amount of liquor in there. So first, it's the anticipation and almost thanking the oyster for its life. I lived in Japan and we did this all the time. It's like, utsukare-sama desu, meaning thank you so much for all of your efforts. And now I'm going to eat you. But before I eat you, I'm going to prime my palate with this moisture. Where am I?
You're right here.
I'm right here. So I'm going to prime my palate, and you're sipping that ocean water. It is unbelievable flavor. So now I like it naked just like that. So what do? People always ask you all the time, do you eat it? Do you chew it? Do you do this? Of course you do. You want to get the full flavor inside your mouth. My mouth feels like the ocean at Narragansett Beach right now. I just got hit by a massive wave. Now I'm going to finish it off. There are no flavors like that in the world, okay? It is such a beautiful, briny flavor. Why anyone would put cocktail sauce on their oysters is beyond me. But just for the heck of it, when you use this mignonette, some of the shallot and some of the red wine vinegar, you don't need much. Okay, you can almost use an eyedropper for this. And that's what you have. Same way, prime. Utsukare-sama desu. Thank you for the effort. Bye-bye. Man. That is living in New England a good way. We made some local redfish, Provençal, fancy French name for cooking local fish from our local fishermen. We've opened up local oysters. Hopefully we'll get that on tape so you can review it and learn it as you go. I've had fun. I love doing it. Like I said, it's an open source world out there for chefs. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me right here at North Coast Seafoods, A. Wilkinson at northcoastseafoods.com. I'll allow Gwen to share that. And does anyone have any questions? And I hope you learned something. I've had fun, and we got to sing a little bit.
We've got one question here. Your opinion on tilapia and its sustainability.
Well, my opinion on tilapia is I personally would rather eat the local fish because this redfish that I just cooked would be very similar to tilapia. So I guess why eat something from South America that you can get right here that's landed at the Boston Fish Pier. First thing, tilapia is okay. It's a farmed fish. We just cooked wild fish. So I would ask the questioner, what was the last wild thing that you've eaten in your diet? People will say, oh, mushrooms. No, mushrooms aren't wild, okay? There's nothing left except for the local fish or the global wild fish market. So when you said the word sustainability, it's very important that we eat and try to choose fish that are sustainable and responsibly harvested. Because the tilapia is a farmed item, it still has sustainability issues, what it's fed. So I'm not going to bash tilapia, but I am going to say eat wild when you can. And when you eat farmed fish, look for the BAP certification. It's called Best Aquaculture Practices, and it's a group of 1 to 4 stars. So look for a 4-star BAP, which will tell you that is a very well-raised tilapia, if tilapia is your fish of choice.
Excellent. And we have another question. Would bottled clam juice be an acceptable substitute for the bone broth?
It would. And I'm always careful, or chefs are always careful about allergens. Clam is a pretty heavy allergen, so be careful who you're feeding, that they're not allergic to shellfish. Nothing will ruin a dinner party more than an anaphylactic shock moment and a 911 call for the EpiPens. So be careful, but of course you can.
And thanks again, Chef Andrew.
You're welcome, Gwen. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Take care.
Have a great day.